Hey guys, thanks for joining me. I know it's a little bit of a clickbaity title and thumbnail because, you know, it's not 2024 and those bikes are pretty far from coming out, but I have some pretty good ideas about what's coming for the 2024 KTM 300 XCW, and I'm super excited to announce that we put money down on one just yesterday at Davis Service Center. I got the dibs on the very first one coming to our area. If my experience tells me correctly, that probably means I'm gonna get one of the very first ones in the country because I got one of the very first 300 XCs. Davis has been a dealer for a long time and they have a really good relationship with KTM, so they get them early, and it's Colorado, so we get things, anyway, whatever. I'm guessing that we're gonna see one very, very early, probably, hopefully end of summer, maybe even like mid to late summer would be cool if we get one. And I have a pretty good idea of what it's gonna look like. So let's dive into what I think is coming for the 2024 300 XCW. All right, so a lot of you guys have been asking about the 24, if it's gonna get the same TBI, if it's gonna get the same chassis and all that good stuff as the 300 XC. And while obviously I don't know everything because I'm not a KTM engineer and I'm not in Europe like taking spy photos or anything like that, I have a pretty good idea based on my knowledge of how KTM normally operates and then what I'm seeing on this bike. So the way KTM normally operates is they release a whole bunch of new cool tech on the XCs, SXs, and XCFs. 1 year, and then the next year they kind of trickle that down to the XCWs. Obviously, the elephant in the room is the motor. Is it going to be a TPI? Is it going to be oil injected? So obviously, again, I don't know for sure, but let me show you what I'm finding and what I think. If you guys look right in here, there are the castings for a TPI, a transfer port injector, right there. The two mounting points and the hole where the injector is going to go. Now, this is a brand new cylinder from the bottom up. This cylinder shares zero in common with the previous year's XC cylinder. So I think there's going to be a transfer port injector, but I do think there's only going to be one. I think there's going to be one on this right-hand side. And then if we come over to the left-hand side, you'll see there's really not room for one over here because of the electronic power valve. It covers up a lot of stuff and there's no casting marks at all on this side. So as a manufacturer, KTM is not gonna waste a whole bunch and have two separate cylinders. That's why, I mean, forever the XCW and XC cylinders have been exactly the same. Maybe different compression ratios on the head, but the cylinders have all been the same, pistons have been the same, all that good stuff. So I think they're gonna keep this cylinder, but what they're gonna do is they're gonna have a transfer port injector on that side, and then over here in the throttle body, they're gonna have one injector here also. Now this bike has two injectors to help, you know, fuel this thing when you go wide open. It's gotta dump a bunch of gas at it. But I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna have one injector here, one injector over there. It's gonna be very similar to the TSP split injector setup that they've been running. By the way, I rode that, you know, we did one of those things and it works really good. I like the way that thing runs. So I think they're gonna do that. I also think they're gonna keep oil injection. They're probably gonna have an oil injection port either on the throttle body like they do on the TPIs, or maybe they're gonna go to premix, although I kinda doubt it. I bet they're gonna have an oil injector and they're gonna keep that pump on there so that they can control the oil at low RPM, idle, things like that. That's how they're gonna make emissions. That's how they're gonna pass emissions, is they're gonna keep the oil injector, they're gonna keep the tank on there. But the cool thing is, with having that split injector setup and having one back in the throttle body, it will allow us to delete the oil injection and go to a premix without having to do a whole bunch of other stuff. Because the TSP kit and I think Best Dual Sports, all those guys that have the relocation of the injectors, you can run premix in those if you want, and it works really well. So I'm really excited about that because first of all, I like premixing, but then also I like the idea of having the option, right? So some people, guys who absolutely love their TPIs because they can just pull up to a gas station, fill it up with gas and go ride and not worry about it. I get that, that's awesome. You'll be able to do that, I think, on the new W's, but you'll be able to delete it if you want. Also, you're going to have that throttle or that injector back here that's going to give you that more rich, more dense charge going into the motor, which is better. I mean, I think everybody can agree on that. The split injector setup on the TSB really is good. And maybe not everybody agrees on that, but it's good. It definitely runs better than a normal one. All right, now let's talk about the chassis. The chassis is not going to be the same as this chassis, mostly because it's going to be PDS. I don't think KTM is going to go away from PDS on their W models. At least I hope they don't. I really like PDS bikes. I also like linkage bikes, but PDS bikes are awesome, especially in the rocks. So to do that, they're obviously going to have the shock mounted up here. I don't know if they're going to use this swing arm. It's a brand new swing arm for this bike. I would imagine that they might modify it, or they'll go back to the other swing arm that's on the other bike because it already accepts the PDS shock. Also, the where it mounts on the frame is going to be different. So, because this frame, you know, is all set up for this shock, I have a feeling the frame in general might be the same, or at least close, but they're going to have a bunch of changes to get that shock, that PDS on there. Forks, I'm sure, are going to be spring. They're probably going to stick with the Explorer forks. People honestly have been pretty happy with those forks. They're not my favorite fork out of the box, but they're pretty darn good in most situations. I think that's about it, guys, as far as like big changes coming on the W's. Now, obviously, again, I'm not an engineer for KTM. I don't really even have super tight relationships with KTM, but having spent a lot of time with this motorcycle, looked at things like that, I feel like those are probably pretty good guesses. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, guys, because like I said, we're getting one of the very first ones, whenever that is. It's going to be months from now, but we are definitely going to get one. We're going to be testing. We're going to be doing all the same stuff we did with this thing. It's going to be really exciting. Can't wait to get one. It's going to be super fun. Also, guys, make sure you subscribe because very, very soon I'm getting a Beta 200RR dropped off here, race edition, and we're going to be doing a whole series of videos on that too. So we're branching out. We're going outside of KTM. For all of you who have been missing the schlogs and things like that, I'm sorry. It is wintertime. We are pretty darn slow right now, so all the work is going to Zach. I haven't been filming other stuff just because Zach doesn't want me filming him all the time, so I apologize for that. Don't worry. More bikes are coming, whatever. We'll get back to the normal schlogs and things like that here soon. Anyway, I love you guys. Get out and spread the gospel of two wheels, and I hope that what we're doing here is inspire you guys to work on, but more importantly, get out and ride your dirt bikes!